Hello everyone, my name is Kushvar. I am an assistant of the Department of Veterinary Sanitary Expertise and Pharmaceutics, Azerbaijan State Agricultural University. And our today's lecture will be dedicated to food poisoning. This is for second-year students of veterinary faculty. Let's start our lecture. Okay, so the outline of the lecture. First of all, I will I will give you definition of food poisoning. What is food poisoning, how it is happening, and etc. Information about bacteria, viruses, toxins, which are causes food poisoning, some treatment methods, and ways of prevention. Some resources which I used for our today's lecture. These websites, and from these resources you can get more information about food poisoning. So, as I told you, first of all, I will explain you what is in general food poisoning. So, food poisoning is a general term for health problems arising from eating contaminated food. The other definition can be acute gastroenteritis caused by the ingestion of food or drink. It can be water, it can be some other beverages contaminated with either living bacteria or their toxins, or inorganic chemical substances and poison delivered from plants and animals. The food toxicology deals with substances found in food that might be harmful for a human to those who consume or consume sufficient quantities of the food containing such substances. It can be, again, I will mention that it can be bacteria, viruses, bacteria, some chemical toxins, and etc. So, what is foodborne diseases? Or in another word, it can be foodborne illness or food poisoning as the title of our lecture. It is any illness that results from the consumption of contaminated food. As you remember, in our previous lecture, we talked about food contamination, and we mentioned, it's just reminding for our students, and we mentioned that there are 4 ways of contamination. In the other slides I will remind you about these ways of contamination, but for now let's continue about the definition of food poisoning. So, the economic costs which can associated with foodborne diseases, they can be severe on people, on food companies, or on the reputation of the country. Foodborne diseases is globally still not under the control. What does it mean? It means that still all over the world foodborne diseases cannot be controlled, and outbreaks can cause health and economic losses. The causes are unhygienic. Pay attention to this word, because in previous lecture I mentioned that, for example, let's take as a sample COVID-19. You know that the first important issue for preventing COVID-19, it's a right hygiene. So the causes are unhygienic practices in food production during the harvesting and preparation of some kinds of foods. There are 31 main foodborne pathogens causing diseases. The significant ones, such as Salmonella, Nonsiform Campylobacter, Listeria, and Shiga, toxin-producing Escherichia coli, are monitored by national authorities, and outbreaks are assessed in depth to assess trends and to determine the steps necessary to combat future outbreaks, to prevent future outbreaks. So, incidents of foodborne disease or foodborne poisoning harm people in all countries of the world. It is true that some of the diseases have been controlled, at least in some areas, but others are emerging or re-emerging. Despite extensive knowledge on diseases such as salmonellosis, cholera, botulism, these diseases have not diminished. It means that they are still continuing to influence on human health. A number of factors are responsible for occurrence of foodborne diseases. Which factors they are? They originate from environmental, social, and economic conditions prevailing in the regions concerned. Foodborne disease, its epidemiology, involve the entire chain of production, of processing, and distribution of food. Distribution of food, of course, directly influence on human health because it means that already the contaminated food is on the markets and bazaars, which consumers are buying already the contaminated food. And it can cause, of course, food poisoning. The level of community sanitation is important, and the role of food habits and culture is increasingly being recognized in both, in developed and developing countries. The other factors can be, I forgot to mention that the other factors can be rapid urbanization, technological advances, international movement of people, etc. So, properly planned, organized, managed, and staffed national and international food hygiene programs are able to contribute to the prevention of foodborne diseases. In addition to food safety, they are able to improve public health in several other ways, such as quality and quantity of food, reduction in fraud, adulteration, prevention of dumping, and others. So a multiplicity of persons need to be educated and trained about hazardous situations to which foods are exposed and about food hygiene measures. This includes who are these persons? Cooks, those who are preparing food at home, food producers, food manufacturers, distributors, managers, and any other food workers. And of course, pay attention please to food inspectors, it's okay, but here is the food hygienists, technologists, sanitarians, and laboratory personnel. Please take into consideration that food hygiene should be veterinarians. Why? Because in all the veterinary faculties all over the world, there are the Department of Food Hygiene, Food Safety and Technologies. So it means that veterinarians, they are not only the doctors, they are also responsible for our health, and food hygienists, they are they are responsible for food safety. I'm sorry. Okay, education and training must take into consideration the number of etiological agents that can cause foodborne diseases. The number is considerable and includes bacteria, viruses, prions, mycotoxins, parasites, chemicals, and radionuclides. Food is of universal interest, and outbreaks of foodborne disease can cause considerable emotional reaction in the community. Sometimes these community reactions are translated into political problems, especially if badly reported or over-reported in the mass media. So, foodborne diseases are illnesses, we mentioned that they are illnesses that result from ingestion of contaminated food. I mentioned in previous slides that there are more dangerous 31 hazardous agents, but according to the information of the World Health Organization, there are 250 different foodborne hazards have been recognized, including infectious bacteria, viruses and parasites, and of course non-infectious, it's chemicals and toxins. Many of these agents commonly cause diarrhea and vomiting, but pay attention to this as well. But there is no single clinical syndrome for all foodborne diseases. In general, it's just diarrhea and vomiting. The sources of these agents range from being an inherent constituent of the food to inadvertent addition during food production and processing. What is inadvertent addition? It means that during food production or food processing, there can be enter some chemicals, some toxins, or some viruses, bacteria, etc. Moreover, most foodborne agents can be transmitted via routes other than food, including water or through contact with infected farm animals, pets, and humans. The proportion of disease associated with being foodborne will differ depending on the agent and food handling, with only a few foodborne disease being transmitted exclusively via foods. For example, Listeria monocytogenes is assumed to be almost exclusively foodborne, whereas Escherichia coli, I will give a brief information about each of these bacteria and viruses. Infections can be acquired by ingesting contaminated food or water, or by direct contact with infected animals or persons. Okay. Determining whether an illness is foodborne can be difficult because the illness may not develop for days, even for several weeks after exposure to a pathogen. This period we are calling incubation period, exposure to a pathogen, and the most recently eaten meal may incorrectly get the blame. One way to determine, one of the ways to determine that a disease is foodborne is to find the agent that caused the disease in a sample of the food that the ill person has eaten. But why it is one of the ways? Because, you know, a person can eat not only the meat or not only the poultry, he can consume different kinds of food. So we have to take samples from each food he has eaten or she has eaten. This is not always possible because leftover food may not be available, or no analytical technique may exist to detect the agent or the reason of the food poisoning. Another way to determine that a disease is foodborne is when a cluster of cases of an illness occur among persons who had nothing else in common than having eaten the same food. Such clusters are sometimes defined in recent years by molecular fingerprinting of agents isolated from cases spread over a wide geographic area. Foodborne diseases are an important part. This information is based on the information on the data of the World Health Organization. So foodborne diseases are an important public health problem worldwide and have an important impact on travel, trade and development. Again, I will go back to COVID-19. We all can see what is going on now during this quarantine regime, and we can see that COVID-19 started from food, but for now it is very difficult to control this, to keep this disease under the control. And it is influencing on everything, on travel, on trade, development, and first of all, it is, of course, influencing on the human health. So the World Health Organization estimated that, I gave already this number, estimated that 31 most important foodborne hazards can cause 600 million foodborne illnesses and 420,000 deaths worldwide in 2010. It is more than for now COVID-19 did for the influence on people all over the world. I'm sorry. Many of these foodborne illnesses and deaths were caused by diarrheal diseases, a leading cause of global deaths in young children. An outbreak of foodborne disease occurs when 2 or more persons experience a similar illness after ingesting a common food. So, a common food. What is risk assessment? In food poisoning, during the outbreaks or before, for escaping outbreaks, we have to, it is very important term for food safety, risk assessment and risk management. Risk assessment provides a framework for systematically and objectively organizing available information of risks. As applied to food safety, it evaluates the probability of occurrence and severity of adverse human health effects. It is typically divided into 4 components. Figure 1, it is in the next slide, so I will show you this figure and explain you briefly what this figure is talking about. So, hazard identification. It determines the link between hazard and human illness. Exposure assessment. It is the determination of the probability that the hazardous agents in the instance of foodborne disease is eaten and the amount of the biological agent likely to be consumed. Hazard characterization is an evaluation of the nature of adverse effects associated with a hazard. This may include a dose response assessment. And the last, it's a risk characterization. This risk characterization is combined information from the hazard identification, hazard characterization, and exposure assessment, and estimates the likelihood and magnitude of adverse. So here you can see hazard identification, what agents are in the food capable of causing adverse health effects, etc. Let's go. This is how the risk assessment and risk management are linked to each other. But I would like to mention that risk assessment is a science-based issue, and the risk management is a policy-based issue which communicate to each other. And risk communication is an interactive exchange of information and opinions concerning risk. So, causes of foodborne illness. It's just a little bit, I would like to remind you our previous lecture, which was about food contamination. And we mentioned that there are 4 ways of contamination, and the most dangerous and the most important was the, of course, all of them are very important and we have to pay attention to all of them, but the biological hazards, what they are include? They include bacteria, viruses, parasites, etc. Then chemical hazards. Chemical hazards include natural toxins and chemical contaminants. Some natural toxins are associated with the food itself. Some are made by pathogens in the food when it is time or temperature abuse, etc. Food allergens. Here you can see some of the 8 major food allergens, which include milk, eggs, fish, shellfish, wheat, soy, peanuts, tree nuts. And the last one is a physical hazards, can include metal shavings from cans and plastic pieces or broken glass. It can occur during the processing at the fabrics where the food is producing. So, some bacteria, I will talk about bacteria later. So, types of foodborne illnesses. What is it? Pathogens can cause different types of foodborne illness. Once a contaminated food is eaten, illness can be caused by the pathogens themselves. It causes foodborne infection, then caused by toxins produced in the food by pathogens. Here, this is the most important to pay attention. Toxins produced by pathogens in the food, foodborne intoxication, and and the other kinds of foodborne diseases. It's foodborne toxin mediated intoxication, but the most important is foodborne infection and foodborne intoxication. Worldwide, foodborne diseases are a major health burden leading to high morbidity and mortality. Global burden of infectious diarrhea involves, please pay attention to the numbers, it's very important. Diarrhea involves 3.5 billion cases and nearly 2 million deaths annually, mainly in young children, which caused by contaminated food and water. This number is really very high. Okay, classification. I told you about classification of foodborne illnesses, but there is the pathogens cause infection by invading and multiplying in the lining of the intestines and or other tissues, invading and multiplying in the intestinal tract and releasing a toxin. It can do only bacteria. Foodborne intoxications caused by consuming foods or beverages already contaminated with a toxin. Sources of toxin are as follows. So certain bacteria, it's perform toxins, poisonous chemicals, natural toxins. Oh, sorry. going on? Here is some causes of food poisoning. Transmitted through food. Unknown agent causes 68% of all foodborne illness and related hospitalizations. Infectious agents, I will talk about infectious agents, about viruses, bacteria and parasites which can cause foodborne diseases in the next slides. So let's skip it. So, illnesses caused by bacteria. First of all, Salmonella enteriditis. I will not explain what bacteria, I will not give you description of this bacteria, just for determination of this bacteria, incubation period is 36 hours, so exposure to pathogen, I explained it to you. Symptoms, what is the symptoms of the disease, salmonellosis? It can be abdominal cramps, headache, fever, nausea, diarrhea. What kind of food can cause this disease or poisoning? It can be poultry or meat, eggs, egg products, sliced melons. And the sources for these bacteria is water, soil, insects, animals, and humans. Okay, let's go. So the other bacteria, very dangerous bacteria by the way, Clostridium botulinum, here it produces several exotoxins. It's really an anaerobic spore former which produces oval subterminal endospores, but it's for microbiology, bacteriology lessons. So incubation period for this disease is 4 hours to 8 days. Symptoms, it's almost the same in all foodborne diseases, but anyway, I will mention them. So it's vomiting, difficulty with vision, speaking, paralysis, death. What kind of foods can cause this disease? It's baked potatoes, garlic or oil mixtures, low acid canned foods. The most important source for this disease is canned foods. Sources present on almost all foods, soil, water. Let's go, another slide. Okay, Escherichia coli. It is a common kind of bacteria that lives in the intestines of animals and humans, and most are harmless. The most dangerous strain of Escherichia coli is, I will write here, Escherichia coli. So O157H7. You can add even here Escherichia coli, but it's not so important because when you are writing O157H7, it means that this is the most dangerous strain of Escherichia coli. In 2011, if I'm not mistaken, there was an outbreak of Escherichia coli O157H7 in Germany, which the source and the food which caused this disease was cucumbers. And the last decision was that these cucumbers came from Spain. So, let's go. Clostridium perfringens. Incubation period for this disease is, for the disease caused by this bacteria is 10-12 hours. Symptoms, again, they're almost the same. foods, stews, gravies, beans, and the sources of the infection is soil, animal and human intestinal tracts. Please pay attention. Animal and human. It means that it can be transmitted from human to animal or from animal to human. Staphylococcus aureus. This bacteria found in the human respiratory tract and on the skin. It is a common cause of skin infections. Incubation period for the disease caused by Staphylococcus aureus is from 1 hour to 7 hours. It's very short time. So symptoms again. What is foods? Which foods can cause this disease? Reheated foods, dairy products, and protein foods. This is the main food which can contaminate and influence on human health. What is the source of this infection? It's skin, hair, nose, throat, infected source, and animals. Bacillus cereus. It's a gram-positive bacteria. Bacillus can produce endospores. Its virulence factors include pterolysin and phospholipase G. Incubation period, pay attention, it's just only 30 minutes to 6 hours. Symptoms, again the watery diarrhea. And I would like to mention that all these diseases can cause dehydration. Most of people can die because of dehydration of the organism, because all of these diseases can be the reason of diarrhea. So which foods can cause this food poisoning? It's rice products, starchy foods, puddings, soaps. So source, again soil, dust, and of course cereal crops. So the other moment is illnesses caused by viruses. Viruses. Hepatitis A, a form of viral hepatitis transmitted in food. Incubation can be from 10 to 50 days. From the name of this bacteria, you can see that hepatitis can directly influence on the liver. That's why this disease is really very dangerous for human health. So, symptoms, how it can occur: sudden fever, vomiting, etc. What kind of foods can cause this disease? It's water or ice, shellfish, fruit juices, vegetables. Please pay attention that most the sources of this disease is the beverages and vegetables. So source where this virus can be, it's human intestinal and urinary tracts. Rotavirus. It is a genus of double-stranded RNA virus in the family of Reoviridae. Incubation period for this disease, for the disease caused by rotavirus, is from 1 to 3 days. I'm sorry. Okay. Again, you see diarrhea, and diarrhea is the main reason of the dehydration of the organism. What kind of foods can cause this disease, this food poisoning? Ready to eat. What is ready to eat? It means that the products which are already, for example, some kinds of soaps where you can add some boiled water, it means that this kind of food is ready to eat. Then water and ice, and the sources, it's a human intestinal tract and water. So, fungus. Molds usually spoil food, sometimes illness. They can spoil, but sometimes can cause the illness. What kind of foods? Sweet and acidic foods. Some produces aflatoxins. I will explain you aflatoxins, because you know aflatoxins, they are very dangerous for human organisms, because you cannot see these toxins, you cannot determine these toxins in the beginning of the disease, but they are staying in the liver even for the few years. They are causing even dangerous diseases for liver. Okay, so yeasts, they can spoil food, but in very seldom they can infect people. So, illnesses caused by parasites. Trichinella spiralis. Incubation period for the foodborne disease caused by Trichinella, it's from 2 days to 28 days. Symptoms, flu-like, swelling around eyes, extreme sweating and hemorrhaging. Foods, undercooked, mostly undercooked pork. Source, domestic pigs, beer, walrus. Giardia lamblia, so I will not stop on this parasite, just briefly, that incubation period for this disease caused by this parasite is from 3 days to 25 days. So you can see here the symptoms. Weight loss. For this disease, the main important symptom is weight loss and abdominal cramps. What kind of food can cause this disease? It's water, ice, and raw vegetables. Source: beavers, bears, dogs, cats, humans. So, this is the general information about the symptoms of food poisoning. For each foodborne disease, it can be, these symptoms can appear. Abdominal cramps, diarrhea, it can be even bloody, fever and chills, headache, nausea and vomiting, weakness, and so you will see. If you are interested in this lecture, you can write to me and I will send it to my students who are interested in this lecture. This is the general principles of treatment, but depends on the disease. I can say that for all, excluding, of course, parasites, which cause food poisonings or foodborne diseases. For all food poisonings, there are the same, almost the same treatment, because all of them cause the dehydration. So the most important issue of this treatment is the rehydration therapy. So here is for botulinum antitoxin. Okay. Prevention of food poisoning. How we can prevent the food poisoning? How we can save our lives and lives of our beloved? First of all, wash hands frequently after using restroom, shaking hands before eating, when you are coming home from the outside, and briefly wash your hands everywhere and very, very usually. Eat only pasteurized dairy products and eggs. Because you know, actually, unpasteurized dairy products, milk for example, can cause the brucellosis. It's an infection disease. I cannot say that it's a food poisoning, but it's a kind of foodborne disease which can influence on human health. Avoid tap water and ice if these ones are uncertain about quality. Recognize high-risk foods. It can be creams, eggs, berries, salads, undercooked fish and shellfish. The most important source for food poisoning is fish and shellfish, aqua products, let's say. Okay, so prevent food handlers from working while ill. Avoid salads and raw fruits that you do not peel. And the other important issue is to every time wash all the raw vegetables and raw fruits, because they are the main source for parasites, for bacteria and viruses. Do not eat solid foods during vomiting and diarrhea. Tea with lemon and ginger to treat symptoms. This this issue is, let's say, general for all countries in all over the world, because tea with lemon, even some specialists in the beginning of the COVID outbreak, pandemic, they said that the easiest way to prevent yourself from this virus is to drink a lot of tea with lemon and ginger. Okay, wash and sanitize all surfaces and equipment used for food preparation. Protect kitchen areas and food from insects, pests and other animals, even from your pets, even from your home animals, let's say. Some people love to keep like cats or dogs. Even you have to keep them far from your kitchen or another areas where you are going to prepare your food. So separate raw meat, poultry and seafood from other foods. It means that you have to keep raw meat, poultry and seafood separately from each other and from the other foods. Use separate utensils such as knives and cutting boards for handling raw foods. For example, it was a movie, I do not remember the name of the movie. They showed that the cook who were going to prepare some kind of food from pork, he just cut with the same knife poultry meat and the pork, and it caused a lot of diseases. So you have to use separate utensils. Choose foods processed for safety, such as pasteurized milk. Wash fruits, I told about it, if eaten raw. Do not use food beyond its expiry date. When we are starting the lectures and our lessons dedicated to food safety, our first question is, how are you realizing that this food is safe or no? First of all, just imagine that you are in the market and you are going to buy some kinds of packed products. What you will do? First of all, you will look at the expiry date, when produced this product and when you have to finish to use this product. You will say, okay, how about the vegetables and fruits? Yeah, it's a little bit difficult because vegetables and fruits, you can see only the surface of this product, but you cannot know what is inside of the product. Of course, if you buy some damaged inside, damaged fruits and vegetables, and you will take them at home, cut them, and will see that they are damaged inside, you have to throw them out. You cannot use these kinds of fruits and vegetables. Okay, that was my lecture for today. It was nice to meet all of you, even virtually. Unfortunately, for nowadays, it's like a duty for us. But I am a very positive person, and I am sure that this quarantine will finish very soon. And I would like to say my special thanks to my family, to my daughter and to my mom, that they are always supporting me, and to my friend Ilham. He helped me in preparing this presentation. Thank you very much, ADAU team, for being with us for this difficult work. And thank you very much, our actor. Thank you.